So he's back to his old self. He's, hopping along, loving life. And we get back into, okay, now go back into you being in school. Are you pursuing your goals? Are you following your path that you saw and staying on that trajectory? Or is Maverick going to try to do what he's always done and use the SE and just try to, push his way through it and react in the moment and get through it? It's always worked. So far, it's not been going well. So how is he going to use that now? Has he really learned his lesson? Is he really developing? Or is he going to go back to his old ways and try it again? And again, that is the hero's journey. They keep trying the same thing and think that this time I'm going to be able to defeat the bad guy, defeat the adversary, and I'll do the same thing. I'm going to try it one more time. And of course, it's doomed to fail. And Maverick's back in his ego. He is breaking rules again, sees Viper, and boy does he want Viper. He really wants to get this guy. He really wants to have that moment in his ego where he's like, look, I told you, see, if I just did it my way, I can totally be the top person of this story, of this, goal that I have.
Don't you leave me, Maverick. Hollywood, you're looking good. I'm going after Viper. God damn you, Maverick. Mav, don't leave him. Goose, Hollywood's okay. I want Viper.
And that's all he sees. That's all he sees. When he sees Viper, everything's off the table. We're back to straight SE, and he breaks the rules. He leaves his wingman, and he rushes after Viper. And, they have a great moment where he's doing all sorts of things. He's getting really close. He's about to hit his target, and then he has Jester come up behind him and locks on, and he's basically done. He's lost. And he wasn't paying attention. He wasn't following his rules, following the methods that have been laid out that are tried and true that will help him be successful and keep him safe. And he left his wingman, which meant, of course, he had no wingman, which allowed Jester to come up behind him and, lock on. And now he's lost that moment. He did everything that he's always done, and it led him to failing yet again.
That was some of the best flying I've seen yet. Right up to the part where you got killed. You never leave your wingman.
It's not your flying. It's your attitude. You may not like the guys flying with you. They may not like you. Well, whose side are you on?
That was stupid. I know better than that. It'll never happen again.
I know. I know.
And that's what we do. This, like we said, this is a story of conscious growth. It is not about specifically what is happening on the screen. It is about this person realizing, going, you know what, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. Because you're going to keep hitting the same exact wall. And that is the story of our types and our conscious growth, is to say, you can't keep using that lead function. You're going to keep running into the same wall if you do. And that's what his conscience, that's what Goose is telling him, saying, here you are again. You didn't listen. You didn't listen to me. And now he's, it's even more desperate. He's like, I know you meant well, but, it's just sheer disappointment from the character of Goose. And he's heard this from other people, but he's still not listening. He still hasn't accepted it. And until you can accept that, until you can believe that, you can't have enlightenment. You can't have conscious growth. If you still believe there's a chance that I don't have to do that. I don't have to face my inferior function. And I'm going to keep running from it, and I'm going to keep trying not to look at it because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have to do it. And I will do everything in my power to not do my inferior and believe that there's a chance I can still get around it, because it's worked before. In my ordinary life before this, it was working. I made it through, and it was always just enough, and it always worked. And now I've somehow hit this new level that I'm trying to achieve, and it's not enough anymore. And the question is can Maverick truly embrace that? Can he embrace that his inferior is something that he needs to get better at, that he needs to absorb into his consciousness more, mature into, and say, let me use that more, because I believe it might actually help my life. And that is the question, is what will it take? What will it take for the hero to really face that? What kind of suffering will they have to go through to make them believe that and finally face that and use that inferior function? So in the hero's journey, in story structure, there is a moment where everything is lost. And if you go watch movies, now that you're kind of hearing this, and if you look more into the hero's journey and story structure, you'll see there's always a moment where it seems like all hope is lost and there's no way forward. And in a lot of heroes' journeys, there is a mentor, who is helping that person. Again, they kind of serve as that conscience and going, hey, here's how you should be. Here's some rules for you to follow. If you do these, you can achieve great things if you want to listen to me. In this moment, we kind of have Goose serving a little bit of a dual purpose here. He's kind of the conscience, kind of the mentor a little bit. And he also is going to be part of that moment where there's something that's so terrible that happens. The hero now has no choice but to face it and make a decision on what he's going to do, how he can move forward. And it's going to feel like all hope is lost. And in this case, in this movie, big spoiler here. So if you've been watching this far and you haven't watched the movie, go check it out. So big spoiler, this is the moment that they are again pursuing that SE goal, and he's trying to maneuver in, he's being very aggressive, and he wants to get this shot. And his one of his main adversaries, Iceman, has the shot, but he's not quite there. He's taking a long time, and he wants to get in there and get the shot. And Iceman won't leave, but he finally says, I can't get the shot, and he finally moves while the other aircraft takes off. And the movie explains that they get caught in a jet wash. They get caught in this kind of, cyclic air maneuver pocket and get stuck in it. And their engines go out and they begin to fall. And this is when Maverick has his darkest moment.
Altitude 8,000! 7,000! Can't reach the ejection handle! Eject! What's the canopy?
And Maverick loses Goose. Goose dies rather suddenly in the movie. It is a big shock. He dies rather suddenly in this accident, and they make clear that it's an accident. There's nothing that he did in that moment, but he loses that conscience. He loses that mentor who's always told him what to do, always suggested, here's a way you can go forward, here's what you shouldn't be doing, here's where you're missing information. And this has to be done. This has to be done in conscious growth. And the reason is it has to be that person's choice, because you can't get to enlightenment if it is not your personal deep down belief that this change will fundamentally change your life. You have to believe that yourself. Nobody can lead you there. Nobody can make you believe. Nobody can hold your hand to that process, because otherwise you haven't made that journey yourself. You haven't obtained that enlightened state because you haven't actually learned, you haven't actually believed what that change can be for you. And if the mentor's still there, then it's too easy, right? You haven't done that yourself. You have to do it yourself. And so in the story, Goose is taken out. He's taken away from the story, away, so that the hero now has to go, okay, what can I do? How do I achieve my goals? Not doing the same thing I did anymore, because I don't believe in myself anymore. I don't believe in anything. How do I find myself again? And of course, the idea of the hero's journey is that he will find himself, he'll find his strength through looking into that inferior function and going, there is a new way of doing this, a new belief. And if I accept that, then I will have an enlightened state, and I can achieve greater things in my life. And at first, Maverick is unwilling to accept that still. So he won't engage, he just has completely given up. He won't do anything. He won't engage in with other fighter pilots, even when they're giving him easy shots and everything, just trying to get him to get back in the saddle. And he just can't do it. So we start going down this path into the unconscious more, where he starts going, looking at things that have bothered him throughout his life. One of those things was a history where his father was a fighter pilot and he had died. It always kind of bothered him that he didn't know the story. And he goes to the instructor. Now, the instructor is not his mentor, right? He's not telling him how to get through this, but he tells him the story of his father, kind of, helps him do some SI, kind of understand the experiences he's been having, the FI, his feelings about those things. So he does help him, just like any friend or person would who's in that position. So he tries to help him. But when Maverick kind of is saying, what should I do? He says, that's your choice. Here's your options. And these are just kind of factual options. You can either graduate and you have enough points. You're not going to be the top gun. You're not going to be the top student, but you have enough points to graduate, and you can do that, or you can quit. You can walk away. But he doesn't tell him what to do, and that's important to the story, because remember, this has to be our hero's choice. It has to be Maverick's choice on what to do. He has to accept a new way of doing things, a new belief. And so that instructor says, it's up to you. And Maverick does choose to go ahead and graduate. And it's, he achieves the goal. He knows it's not fulfilling because, right, he hasn't accepted a new state of enlightenment in our hero's journey. He hasn't achieved higher consciousness. And so he graduates, and it's very unfulfilling for the audience. We don't feel like, this was a win. And he kind of limps across the finish line. Now, while they're having that celebration, that graduation, they're told that, hey, whoa, there's a big problem. We need all of our top fighter pilots to rush out to the Indian Ocean, and we need them to go and engage with these adversaries. We need you there right away. So they rush off, and now we're going to see that in the hero's journey, he's put to the final test against the main adversary. And like we said, the main adversary is himself. And so can he finally accept that he has to have a new way of being? Maverick is brought into the fray. They launch him off the aircraft carrier. There is a dogfight that is happening, and he rushes in, right? And again, that's what we'd expect from him. He's rushing into the fight, and they have this moment where he gets caught in a jet wash again, and it seems like he's going to lose control, just like he did whenever his friend died. But he recovers, but it's enough to put him in a state where he's not sure how to get through this, and he leaves the fight, right? He runs away. He's having this moment. He's thinking back to his friend, and he says the infamous line, "Talk to me, Goose." But that's kind of him going, like, having that moment of understanding, saying, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to get through this? What can I do? And it's not going to be the same old way. He's not going to do the same thing he's always done. He has to choose this path to enlightenment. So he has this moment of realizing how he needs to go about this. And we're going to see that all the ways that he's failed before are now ways that he is putting those into use. That introverted intuition, that inferior function of going, this is the pattern, this is the path that I need to take to make sure I'm successful and I don't fall into the same traps that I've always fallen into. And so we see him where he has a moment where, again, he's even put to the test, life and death. And this is a big thing in the hero's journey. This choice of enlightenment has to be a life and death decision, because that's how you know it matters. And a lot of times the hero will kind of die physically or metaphysically, and that's kind of what had just happened in that moment where he got in that jet wash. He kind of brought him back to that moment he almost died, and now he's made the decision to go back. And even again, he is very specifically tested, and there's somebody who is about to lock onto him, and he says,
Not leaving my wingman.
I'm not going to leave my wingman. And he stays, even though it means that he could die. But he has now decided that this is the path that he needs to be on and stay on, even if it means putting himself in danger. Usually he would just go, maybe he could go try to engage that person, and maybe his wingman would get shot down by somebody else. But he's like, I'm not going to do that this time. I have learned that can cause problems when I do that. And he stays with his wingman. They end up getting through it, and they end up engaging with the enemy and, shooting other pilots, left and right, and they succeed. And this is what will lead us to that enlightened state. He has learned those lessons. He has suffered, and he tried to not go through that process to achieve that enlightened state. And he kept trying to do the same old things again and again, which caused suffering, which caused suffering, which caused more suffering, until he got to a place where he was suffering so much that either he had to make a decision to change, or if he had continued in that manner and he didn't change, then he would continue to suffer through his life. And that's when your story becomes a tragedy. And when somebody does not change, will not go through that process, will not push themselves to that next level of understanding and mature into that enlightened state, if they do not, then they will continue suffering, and then their life will likely become a tragedy. Those are the stories of tragedy, when somebody cannot accept having to grow beyond that state that they're in and accept this new way of being. Their life will become a tragedy. The story is a tragedy of somebody who could not see past themselves to a new path. So Maverick is now an enlightened person, an enlightened ESTP. So what is he going to do next? What's that final step of what he can do next, right? That's completely the opposite of his main function. So his first function, extroverted sensing, is being in the present, being in the experiences that we're all having right now, being very aware of those things and that information that is happening. So what is the complete opposite of that would lead him to pursuing the next version of being enlightened. And that's going to be his last function. So his last function is extroverted intuition. And we see this at the very end of the movie. He's back full circle. He's back where he started. He's on the aircraft carrier. He's talking to the person who was reprimanding him at the beginning of the movie for not thinking those things through. He was like, hey, you did it. What are you going to do next? And Maverick answers by saying
I
this.
thought of being an instructor, sir.
And he says, I think I'm going to be a Top Gun instructor. And that is perfect. That is perfect for the ESTP. And what are they really going to be searching for to reach a more enlightened state? And that is looking at your last function and trying to integrate that. And for him, he says, I'm going to teach what I have learned. I'm going to pass on my knowledge. And he's going to live in the world of ideas and pass on the things that he has learned. And maybe those things will be, hey, I was like you. I was a hotshot pilot who thought I knew everything, and I had to learn to do these things. That is the highest level that a person can try to reach in their life, and that is to teach others what they have learned. That is the goal of all the types, and the information that they have learned, their hero's journey, to pass that along to others. And for Maverick, it is very specific to his type and saying, I'm going to go and deal in the world. I see new possibilities out there, things I never considered, and that's what I want to pursue. And I want to pursue the things that I never even thought of, and something completely antithetical to my type, to my first function. And from there, I think I can grow into an even more enlightened version of myself. It's a great story, and it's so specific to the ESTP and the hero's journey of the ESTP. And it's just so on track to everything that you would expect to see, all the way down to that last function and saying, I'm going to go and deal in the world of ideas and new possibilities and seek those out. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that you learned something, covering some of the basics of storytelling and some of the basics of type, and learn things about the ESTP. If you're an ESTP yourself, ESTPs, they're a needed member of a functioning society. They're so much fun. They have so much to give, and they're always trying so hard to achieve things and push through things and teach the rest of us how to push through things as well. And like I said, they're going to be the first person to come back and get that person who's fallen down and teach them how to push through, because that is their type. That is what they see, and they're so good at helping others do that as well. There's also their enlightened state of learning how they need to pursue certain things, how there are consequences for actions, and what those will be, and think those through before reacting, before acting, and believing that I can just do that and I will get through. They have to power that down, and they will learn that through their life and go, I don't want to keep jumping without thinking this through. And if I do that, I think that I can prevent a lot of hurt for myself. I can prevent a lot of issues that are caused when I've done that before. And if I can integrate that and learn to do that, my life will be better. That is the goal. That is the hero's journey of the ESTP. So thank you very much for joining me. If you got anything out of this, please, leave a like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff, and all the thumb love. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next Conscious Patterns. Thank you.